The Joe Rogan Experience.
I mean, because things would play it at the drive-in and then go away.
Yeah.
You know, that was like, that's how I felt when the first time, I loved when 42nd Street in New York was the real 42nd Street.
Right.
And I remember, it was so funny, me and my friend, my roommate back then, we'd always go to 42nd Street to see movies because it'd be like Cannibal Holocaust. I would just see the poster, what the fuck is Cannibal Holocaust? And you go see this Italian cannibal movie, go, this is literally the most, I cannot believe another human made this movie.
Right.
And it blows your mind. But I remember every time I went to 42nd Street, I saw a really bad incident happen. Like you could not go there. Like we'd be like waiting in line and like, oh, let's go get some French fries before the movie. Two guys would start fighting at McDonald's. One guy would just pummel the other guy. It'd be blood everywhere. I go, it happened. Next time we go, we'd see a guy stab another guy in the theater while watching. There it is. Like literally, I never went there once. And even right till I was recording my album before I moved, I remember walking to the studio, which was like maybe 43rd, and there was a dead body lying there, and they had just found him, and they were just starting to put the sheet. So I actually didn't see the violent act, but I saw the dead body. But you didn't care. Like New York, it was like New York when I moved to New York in '82, still seemed like, you know, Taxi Driver New York.
Yeah, well, that was when it was. And
it was
coming from Haverhill,
wild
must have been
fucking West.
So exciting because Haverhill's so boring in comparison.
Couldn't be more boring. if its goal was to be boring, it's
gold medal.
Yeah, yeah, it succeeded. I remember Haverhill was so bad that when we were kids, I remember. I don't forget. Maybe this was maybe around the bicentennial. I think they were trying to drive business because Main Street, and they can't even blame Walmart back then, was dead. There was nothing there. It was just a ghost town. And they're like, they just put all these banners up. Haverhill, the all-American city. But it was like the catchphrase is going to matter.
That's going to make people open businesses. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know.
I was like, oh, this is so bad.
Time to sell flags.
Yeah, exactly. So
I went to New York City for the first time in the 80s as well. I'm trying to remember what year it was. It was like somewhere probably around 82 or 83. And when we were in the city driving around, I remember thinking like, this is the craziest fucking place I've ever been in my life. The buildings were so big it didn't make sense. Pulling up to it, I remember we drove up on the West Side Highway and you see the city coming up in the distance. Like, you see the buildings getting larger and larger as you get closer.
It's mental.
It didn't seem real.
I remember being on the sidewalk. Now, this is coming from a place where a sidewalk means there's literally no other person on the sidewalk as far as you can see.
Right.
And they were standing on the sidewalk and must have been uptown somewhere. And it was like you couldn't move with people. I was like, what is happening?
Right.
Like,
Swarms.
I've never seen, like, this is how it is all the time. Like, I lived in a street in Haverhill, like, a car drove down it, like, once a day. And it was probably your dad coming home from work. Like, there was just nothing.
If you had a time machine, though, and you went from 1982 and you said, hey, what do you think it's going to look like here in 2019? You'd be like, fuck, man, it's going to be Mad Max.
Yeah.
Like, there'd be fucking cars driving with black smoke coming out of them, people shooting people right on the street. It's going to get worse. It's not going to get better.
Yeah, the only thing I remember, right towards my end of being there was the Tompkins Square, you know, downtown. Mm-hmm. And that was where it's just like, wherever homeless people lived, it was Alphabet City. It was like the worst. Well, wait, I want to back it up. When I first moved to New York, the first night I was there, this sounds like I'm making it up, and I'm not. The first night I was there, the dorm that I was in with all my roommates overlooked Union Square Park, which was like Needle Park. You just went there to buy dope, and that was it. Now you go there because it's a farmer's market, and it's beautiful. And I heard this guy screaming and screaming and screaming. And I was like, Jesus Christ, what's going on? Because it was like 100 degrees. And of course, there's no air conditioning. I look out the window and I watch these cops beat up this guy. And I was like, and then they dragged him down to the subway. And the next day, all these cops showed up at the dorms. And it was this guy, Michael Stewart. It became a really famous case. They called him a graffiti artist, and he had been beat to death by the cops. And me and all my roommates saw it.
Whoa.
And the next day, they came and took our statement, and we all had to testify in front of the grand jury. This is my first day out of Haverhill.
Wow.
I witnessed a murder. But again, it's like the same thing with like my deal at Universal. I was like too naive and weird to really comprehend what I'd seen.
Were you kind of pumped? Like, wow,
I just was like,
things are happening.
I'm so jaded. It didn't disturb me or seem like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I am desensitized by all the violence I've witnessed as a child, I guess.
Would you see more violence before that?
Well, there's one famous thing I remember as a kid. There's two famous things. I just thought of them. When I was a kid, the family business that my mom came from was like carnivals. Like, you ever see that movie Carney?
Yeah.
With Gary Busey?
Yeah.
That's exactly the life as a kid that I remember. When I saw the movie, I was like, this was our life. We were at.
So that makes sense. This
Yeah.
attraction you have to these drifters.
Yeah, it was always what I was surrounded by. So that was the thing I remember as a kid. Except it was around 1977, I think, because I remember Kiss Love Gun, it just came out because I was all pumped about it. And the family worked there, my mom and dad, and me and my brother had to work and sell food and stuff, and I hated. We used to have to dip the candy apples and hand them to people, and they've healed now. But I had burns all over my hands because the apple candy would be so hot it would drip on my hand and burn my hands. Anyway, I digress. But one night there was the gambling tents, which were all rigged, of course, and some guy had gotten fleeced for all of his money, and came back and lit the tent on fire, and then suddenly shit hit the fan. Everybody that me and my little brother had been around all the time, it's like, boom, all these guns start coming out. And you start hearing guns popping up. And then the tents just went, like nothing was fireproof. So everything's on fire. It's complete chaos. And I was probably in 5th grade. My brother was probably in 2nd grade. And everybody screaming and running around. And this guy was like, that I don't remember his name, but he worked there. He was like, hey, you guys should come over here. And before he finished his sentence, somebody ran up and hit him in the face with a hammer and broke his whole face open. And it was just gushing blood. And we're like, and then eventually my parents got us in the car and we left, my mom was like, we're done. We're not doing this anymore. That was the last time we ever did it.
Wow, what a great way to go out, though.
But the best was going to school in September. Like, what did you do this summer? And that was my story.
Wow.
We didn't go to Camp Winnipesaukee. We were in a carnival riot.
What was the gambling tent? Like, what kind of games are they rigging?
I don't know. I mean, everything's rigged. Like, anything from... And there's even a great scene in Carney where... a friend of mine who's in a lot of my movies, Meg Foster, plays the one. She's holding all the long strands of rope, and she's trained Jodie Foster, like you pull the rope and it's connected to a prize, and everything's rigged, like the weighted lead milk bottles you're supposed to knock down with a softball. I mean, everything's rigged. I mean, there's certain ways that you know how to cheat them, so that when the guy's showing you how to do it, look, it's so easy, just throw it like this. But there's a certain way you can throw it, it'll work, but other ways it won't. I would never be in the gambling tents because they were actual gambling. We were like little tiny kids, but it was probably roulette wheels, I'm guessing. Things like that. That would, the guy spins it and probably hits something with his foot and it never stops on the number that the guy's got all of his money on because he let him win a bunch of times or something.
So when the fire broke out and people started shooting, who was shooting at who?
I don't know what was going on.
Just chaos.
We're little kids. Like, you're not really comprehending this going on in like 4th or 5th grade. You're just like, that guy's now got a gun. I hear gunshots. Everything's on fire. There's smoke. People screaming. This guy's now gushing brains out of the front of his head. So,
fuck.
I said there were 2 stories. The second story. The second story I kind of put in the new movie 3 from Hell. This was like when I was in high school. I was in the backyard rehearsing with my 2 friends, our band or whatever. And we heard this screaming. And it was a bright, sunny day. It seemed like a David Lynch movie, Suburbia. And this fat, naked guy was running down the street covered in blood. He had been stabbed a whole bunch of times. And like people are mowing their lawns and looking out. And I just remember a bloody, naked guy running down the street screaming like a weird scream. People scream weird when they get stabbed. And so I put there's something like that in the movie. But it just, yeah.
What happened to him?
I don't know. I don't know. He was like he was knocking on people's doors like, help me, let me in. And again, I was like, oh, it's weird. And I just went back and we continued rehearsing.
Whoa.
Like, again.
That must have flavored the music a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know.
That
just
day.
like I should be really bothered by things like that. But I'm not.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a thing that happens when you see too much. It's one of the reasons why cops and soldiers have some of the oddest sense of humor.
I could see that.
Yeah, they've just seen too many bodies. They've seen...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine the guys that have to come scrape up all the stuff off the road and put it in the bags.
Geez, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that after, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the life I remember. And I remember my mom's brother. He would always. He didn't always do this, but sometimes he was a biker, so he'd come over to the house and he had a chopper with iron crosses on it. And he kind of looked like Lemmy with a big mustache, and I was like, "This guy's badass!" Like, drive us around the neighborhood so everyone can see us. You know, there's a lot of that stuff.